All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going on a wild, high-altitude adventure. I mean, have you ever been in a storm so incredibly strong that the walls actually started shaking? Well, buckle up, because we're unpacking a crazy, action-packed story straight from the towering Himalayan mountains. We're talking howling winds, indoor fireworks, brave midnight rescues, and a house-wrecking storm that literally turned a living room into a swimming pool. Let's get started. Before we meet our heroes, picture this. You're fast asleep, tucked perfectly into your nice, warm bed. The wind is howling outside, sure, but you feel totally safe. And then, whoosh! The roof right over your head just rips away, disappearing into the pitch-dark sky, and freezing rain starts dumping directly onto your face. Ask yourself, what would you do? Would you panic? Would you hide under the covers? Or would you jump into action? Keep your answer in mind as we see how our brave family handled exactly this. So let's meet our heroes. We've got a grandfather who lives on the upper floor of this massive two-story building with his family. There are 3 grandkids, Rakesh, Mokesh, and the youngest, Dolly. They live in a traditional Mussoorie house. Now, this place is over 100 years old. It's got a corrugated tin roof with a ceiling made of wooden boards. And honestly, this old building is tough as nails. It survived 10 whole years without a single disaster and even shrugged off the massive shock of a severe earthquake. But even the toughest house shows its age eventually. Just listen to this joke from the youngest granddaughter, Dolly. She says, "It's difficult to tell the new cracks from the old." Seriously, this house is covered in so many lines and creaks that it's basically just holding together by habit. They're totally used to sudden storms up there on the first range of the Himalayas, but as we're about to see, tonight is going to be very, very different. Bam! The storm hits. Just imagine the absolute force of this fierce wind sweeping across the hills from the east. The sky goes pitch black, lightning splinters across the horizon, and this massive storm zeroes in right on their 100-year-old house. The wind doesn't just blow, it attacks. It's like a full-on animated action movie as the trees bend entirely sideways and the old house begins to shudder and groan under the immense pressure. Now, to really get how scary this was, you need to understand this sound, an eerie wail. An eerie wail is a frightful, really high-pitched noise, kind of like the sound of a cartoon ghost howling, that spooky, high-pitched woo sound. That is exactly what the wind sounded like as it came rushing at the family's windows in the dead of night. And this angry wind wasn't just blowing. It was buffeting the house. Buffeting basically means striking or pushing against something over and over again. Imagine a giant just rhythmically punching the roof. Bam, 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 while the rain is fiercely lashing against the glass. You can easily see why absolutely nobody in the house was sleeping through this. Things go south real fast. First, the chimney completely collapses, bringing down this messy shower of sooty, black rainwater. Then, with this terrible ripping and groaning sound, the wind gets right under the metal roof. The tin sheets literally slide off the wooden rafters and drop down onto the road below, sounding like thunderclaps. Grandfather is just lying there thinking, well, as long as the ceiling stays put, I'm staying in bed. But step 3 changes his mind instantly. A massive wave of icy water dumps right onto his face. Poor grandfather, he leaps out of bed, totally soaked, only to see that a huge chunk of his wooden ceiling is just gone. Water is pouring onto his bed, his radio, and worst of all, his open typewriter. Now, this isn't just any machine. This typewriter has been his trusty sidekick for 40 years. So he grabs it, stumbles out of his ruined bedroom, and bolts for the front sitting room, only to find out it's literally raining indoors there too. Water is pouring right through the wooden slots onto his open bookshelves. It is an absolute catastrophe. His massive library is getting totally soaked. But right then, the kids rush in to help. Little Dolly bursts into the room, takes one look at the indoor rainstorm hitting those shelves, and shouts her epic battle cry, "Save the books!" And boom, the ultimate midnight rescue mission is officially on. Welcome to Operation Rescue the Library. Dolly and her brother Mukesh start scooping up massive armfuls of books. They're frantically running them into the kids' room, mostly because that section of the roof hasn't blown away yet. But it is not easy. The floor is literally awash with freezing water. They didn't even have time to put on proper shoes, so they're splashing around barefoot in this giant indoor icy puddle, piling the rescued books right onto their own beds just to keep them dry. Right in the middle of all this dramatic chaos, we get this perfect, hilarious moment of cartoon comedy. Dolly is gathering some important papers when suddenly, squeak,
a giant field rat jumps right onto the desk in front of her. Dolly absolutely loses it, squealing at the top of her lungs and sprinting for the door. But her brother, Mukesh, who's a huge animal lover, just laughs. He calmly points out, it's all right, it's only sheltering from the storm. Like, even the wild animals are trying to escape this crazy weather? I mean, as if a missing roof, a freezing flood, and a jumping rat weren't enough, the house basically turns into an indoor fireworks show. 2 rooms are totally roofless, so they're seeing literal lightning flashes lighting up the sky right from the living room. Then water hits a damaged electrical wire, making it sputter and crackle wildly. Finally, the electricity just gives up entirely and the lights go out. Pitch black. But big brother Rakesh saves the day. Cool as a cucumber, he manages to light 2 kerosene lamps, and by that warm glow, the library rescue continues. So let's look at the exhausting timeline of this crazy night. By midnight, the roof blows off and the rescue is in full swing. By 2 in the morning, water is draining through the floorboards and they can actually hear their downstairs neighbors yelling because now they're flooding too. By 4 a.m., the rescue is finally done and everyone is completely exhausted. All the available beds get pushed into the absolute driest corner of the kids' room. And finally, by dawn, the fierce wind drops and something magical happens. It starts to snow. So how did they even survive until morning? Well, they huddled together. Huddled just means being crouched and curled up tight. The whole family, grandfather, Dolly, Mukesh, Rakesh, and their parents, huddled closely under warm blankets and quilts, squished into that one dry corner, just trying to share some warmth while the storm raged outside. But man, when the sun finally comes up, that chaotic nightmare turns into a literal winter wonderland. Looking through the door into the sitting room, grandfather watches these gentle snowflakes drifting right through the huge gaps in the ceiling. The snow is just settling so beautifully on picture frames and totally ordinary objects like a glue bottle and a small clock. The scary storm actually transformed their wrecked living room into this quiet, snowy, almost cartoon-like landscape. To perfectly picture this scene, you have to know that the window panes were encrusted with snow. Encrusted with basically means heavily coated. When dawn broke, those windows were totally encrusted with snow and massive icicles. And as the morning sun shone through the giant holes in the ceiling, it hit those icicles and turned everything in the room this sparkling, brilliant golden color. But here is the absolute ultimate victory of the night. Despite the icy rain, the sparking wires, and the giant rat, the books were saved. Snow crystals might have been sparkling on the empty shelves, but every single book made it safely. Every chair and table in the dry room was piled ridiculously high with books. Grandfather even joked that he never realized how big his library was until he had to physically carry it all in the middle of the night. Now, you might think a massive disaster like this would ruin their whole month, right? No way. Look how fast this family bounces back. First thing, big brother Rakesh heads out into the snow to grab a carpenter and a tinsmith. Then the rest of the family teams up to haul all their soaking wet clothes and rugs out into the bright sunshine to dry. And by that very same evening, they got much of the roof put back on. Grandfather even noted it was a much improved roof now, and they were actually looking forward to the next storm with total confidence. So what's the big takeaway from this wild adventure? It's honestly pretty simple. When people stay calm and support each other, they can face even the fiercest of storms. This family didn't yell at each other. They didn't just freeze in a panic. They rallied together, saved what mattered most, laughed at a field rat, and fixed the whole problem by the very next day. Because look, we all face storms in life. Maybe not a literal wind ripping your roof off, but tough challenges at school, in sports, or at home. So what storms in your own life could you face better with a little teamwork? Next time things get chaotic, remember the grandfather, Dolly, Mukesh, and Rakesh. Stay calm, help each other out, and you just might wake up to a golden, snowy wonderland. Thanks for hanging out with me on The Explainer. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.